Hi, everyone. My name is Charlie Wu. I'm the Managing Director for Toronto Taiwanfest. Thank you for coming to this year's virtual tour presented by Fairchild Media Group. And I'm sure all of you already received a goodie bag from us. And there's a mushroom jerky from Taiwan. And this is actually a very popular snack that within our team, and it's also something that's vegan. And it's grown by an organic farmer. And something that one of my favorites. So have it a try. If you like it, let us know, and we can tell you where to get it. So the next thing I want to show you is this cracker from Zhonan Salt Field in Jiayi, Taiwan. And so our team went to this salt field in Jiayi last year. And it was the first time I actually had the experience of walking barefooted in this salt field. And it, it's actually quite interesting that you can feel the warmth from the earth despite the water is being cold. But once you put your foot into the pool, you can actually touch the bottom of the pool, and it's actually quite warm. And it's the heat coming out from the earth, and that's how the formation of the salt being grown in Taiwan. And this is actually quite interesting because the place it's known for salt many years ago. However, because of the globalization, people have banned the use of the salt field until recently. A group of young people went there to revive the farming again. And so people in Taiwan are learning the traditional ways of growing or agriculturally. And this is sort of a trend happening in Taiwan. And I want to share that with you because perhaps next year we will be introducing some of the things that they do in Taiwan at the festival. Okay, so you also have an opportunity of receiving our T-shirt. The T-shirt has this image, "Culture is fermented," in it. It's actually by our Taiwanese artist, Zheng Jingwen. And I will talk to you about this work in just a minute. I'm going to try to provide this virtual tour through navigating our website. I think this is probably the best way we can learn about this year's programming, and I can give you a few highlights or my favorites for this year as well. Stay with me and feel free to give me any questions through email or write us questions through our social media platforms, and I'm happy to answer more questions for you. Okay, and I want to thank Fairchild for providing the opportunity to have you join us, and I hope that you can enjoy the festival. So now let's go to the website. So for Toronto, our web address is torontotaiwanfest.ca. So once you get to the website, and there's a couple of choices, you can actually use Chinese, traditional Chinese, or English. And on the right side of the website, there's the selection of various different categories of information you can obtain here. And I would suggest that you do have a look of our artistic direction, and so you kind of understand how the festival is formed and the programming is formed and how we go about finding different programs, because everything has to kind of meet this artistic vision ultimately. Okay, and if you don't know about the festival, here's a history tab that you can go into. This is our 17th year in Toronto, and unfortunately we only can do it virtually this year. But we're hoping to return to Harbourfront Center next year. And so there's also the Dialogue with Asia series, which talks about the past few years, how we started with Hong Kong, Japan, the Philippines, the Vietnam, and then we come to this year with South Korea. And this is the tab that I want to take you to. It will see all the programs, and then we'll come back and to see the online gallery that we have. Okay, and please don't forget to visit some of our supporters, our donors and sponsors. And if you think that this is a program, this is a festival worth supporting, there's a donation tab that we would love to have your support. So let's get started by the programs. So once you're in the programs, you're going to get to see many different programs with the pictures. And there's also a selection of different programming categories that it's easier makes easier for you to view the program. So like everything, I want to start with our music program. And so this year, we are happy to have Maestro Ken Xie to return with our Taiwanfest Orchestra. And they have already been to Roy Thompson Hall and recorded their concert for you. And so the theme this year is called New World. And you can actually come up here and sign up so we can give you notification when it's actually premiering on air or online. And so if you don't know, we have been together with this group of musicians for quite a few years at the Harborfront Center. This concert has been known for our summer highlight. And it is also a way that we engage with local musicians, get them to understand cultures, music from Taiwan and other Asian cultures as well. This is one program that we dedicate for all the musicians in the local area. And as you probably know, that last year we also had them despite the pandemic, and everyone actually stayed at home and recorded their music through their phones. And then we put together a virtual concert afterwards. Okay, and so this is one program, and I like to also take you to the other programming that we're featuring this year. Is actually a Korean group. Since we're having this dialogue with Korea, the tune and their music is called Wandering the Melodic Road. It's also a program that we were actually invited to Korea a couple of years ago. And despite the fact that everyone always talk about K-pop in Korea, this is one group that perhaps can help you to reimagine what the music scene is in Korea. The tune takes their traditional music, but has a contemporary twist to it. And I particularly like their style. It has a bit of a South American feel to it. So this is something that surprises me, seeing it firsthand in Korea. So, and I wish that they could perform here in person, but unfortunately that they would have to do it virtually for you. But I know it's an exciting show, and I couldn't wait to show you. And other programs that you can actually view here, there's, in this year, many of our presentations are actually musicians, but we present them in a way that you just don't listen to their music or watch their performances. You get to learn a bit about them. And so there's this Janice Jolie from Toronto and of Korean descent, and her music has a bit of activism, social activism in it. So I'll leave it to you for you to explore. And there's also a couple others that we have musicians from. This is Roa Lee, and she's actually also Korean, but living in Toronto. But she has been using her music to meet her fellow musicians in Toronto. Music becomes her way of engaging in the society and meeting new friends. Her story is actually very interesting as well. And I also learned that she's a big fan of National Chinese Orchestra Taiwan. We had a good chat, and we are hoping that you can learn something from Roa as well. There's also Dallas Waddle. He is actually from Toronto area, but he actually had lived in Taiwan for 10 years, almost 10 years. And that's where he became actually quite well known in Taiwan, and the sort of the Canadian representative in the entertainment area. And so if you see him in his presentation, you actually learn a bit about what he has done in Taiwan, starting from learning Mandarin all the way to starting his music career. The only reason he had to come back is, he wanted to come back to be with his mother, who is experiencing some illness. So he's back here to be with his mother. But he doesn't want people to forget him, and he still is very proud of his 10 years in Taiwan. So this is a story that you can learn more about Dallas Waldo. And then we have other Taiwanese musicians as well. Here you can see Yahweh. Yahweh is actually half indigenous and Ataya, and half Taiwanese. And so for many musicians like herself, finding her identity, learning more about her identity is actually very intriguing. And so growing up as an indigenous person, at least her mother's side is indigenous, her mother actually refused to let her learn her mother tongue, and because her mother wanted her to fit in. However, she actually discovered her mother tongue is actually quite important to her, and she had used her music to reconnect with her mother, in terms of relationship. So very interesting story, and her music is so interesting and lovely as well. And we have couple other artists that I think it's worth knowing. Okay, we have the G-Boy Swag and Xiao Bingzi. Both have actually been to our festival in the past, but they were here as the Magic Power band a few years ago. And the band has since dissolved, but the two members from the band actually continue their own career. And this is also the first time we're learning more about these two artists, and learn about how is Taiwanese popular music culture different from the K-pop that people know. And through their discussion, you actually can find a bit more about their music as well as their life stories. So in addition to the music, we also have a very, very important talk. As you probably know, this is the year that we have a dialogue with South Korea. So let me start with this piece called Cultures Fermented before I get to the talks. And as you see previously with the t-shirt, this Cultures Fermented is by the artist Zheng Jingwen. And so what he had done is, he was commissioned to put together the work of two huge urns. And we thought that all the cultures are very similar to food fermentation process. Everything that's inside an urn has an impact or will influence the outcome of the food. And in this case, the outcome of our culture. So whatever we are today, whatever we identify today, is actually ultimately influenced by what was in the urn. And so later on, when I take you to the gallery, we'll actually have an interactive component of the work, so you can actually play with it. And we're hoping in Toronto on September 26th, there's a large installation of this urn coming to Nathan Phillips Square, and we're hoping that you can join us there at that time. So let me go back to the talks. So a lot of talks are surrounded with the theme of the dialogue between Taiwan and South Korea. And so this gentleman here, Rex Howe, for many people that they're probably, their story is quite unique. There's a group of people originally from China, and Rex Howe's parents were from China in Shandong province, and they left China to move to Korea. And Rex was born in Korea and moved to Taiwan when he was going to college, and about 20 years old, but he had never returned to Korea. And the interesting thing about him is his perspective, growing up as a non-Korean, but was born in Korea, in Korea was, something that he could never forget. And he shared a few stories of how those experiences had really shaped him as a person. And so when he moved to Taiwan, he actually became this publisher, a huge publisher in Taiwan, and wanting to preserve the freedom of expression in the Chinese publishing world. And so he has a lot to do with the movement of that in Taiwan. But he also sees, similar path between Korea and Taiwan. And so he is using his talk to kind of share his perspective on what Taiwan can actually do, using Korea as a mirror to kind of be careful with their own path going forward. So from his talk, you can actually learn about this different perspective of someone who you never thought, wasn't born in Taiwan, but has so much love and contribution to Taiwan. And in addition to Rex, there's also this very interesting talk I think that I would recommend highly to everyone who loves independent music. So for Jiang Da Im and Michael Hollett. Michael Hollett is actually a local. He is the NXNE, one of the largest music festivals in North America, but it's based in Toronto. And Michael is the founder, and he is also very involved in many different things in the media. And Jiang Da used to be one of the founders for Crystal Records in Taiwan. And for many of you, if you don't know Crystal Records was actually quite instrumental in how Taiwan's independent music got started. Okay, and both of them actually got together in a talk that they talk about the past and they talk about the present, and they're also imagining the future together. If you want to know how music has impacted their life, this is a talk that you don't want to miss. So there's also a book author, Anne Y.K. Choi, and Anne is actually a very well regarded author in Toronto, and she is actually a teacher in the Toronto High School. She shares her perspective as a Korean immigrant coming to Canada and learning about culture here, and at the same time kind of adjusting her own culture. There are different stories that we all can resonate as newcomers to Canada today, and perhaps learning from Anne and listening to her story would actually bring you some memories back, and when some of us were actually younger when we first come to this country. And she's actually joined by a panel of guests after her talk, so they kind of exchange with their own experiences, and it was actually a very interesting conversation learning from Ms. Choi. Furthermore, we also think that for South Korea and Taiwan, and maybe even for Vietnam and Japan, and definitely for China, there's this connection that sort of the foundation of all the cultures is what's known as Confucianism thinking, or Confucianism. And despite that, we all feel that the cultures, all these cultures are influenced by the Confucianist Confucian thinking. The reality is every culture still is very different. And Professor Josephine Chu-Du of UBC, actually an expert on Confucianism, and she kind of help us to kind of relive or relearn the person Confucius, and actually was quite fascinated with her talk, and she shared many perspectives that I did not know myself. So many people thought Confucius is someone who wants everyone to be obedient, and on the contrary, that the real person, the Confucius, actually would welcome anyone who disagree with him. So this is why that you need to listen to this talk, and maybe you can revisit your understanding of Confucius as well. Furthermore, I think that the festival has always wanted to kind of raise awareness of the environment. So we have a few films that we're showing this year, and especially I would like to recommend this film it's called May Sea Turtles Be With You Always, and it's by filmmaker Ke Jingyuan. So in Taiwan, many people actually go to temples and they would pray with the sea turtles, and sea turtles is also a symbol for good luck and symbol for fortune and simple for longevity. However, filmmaker feels that many people actually don't know anything about the real sea turtles in the ocean. So this film actually takes us back, kind of revisit some of our traditions and hoping to get people to learn that what we actually know and what we actually have in our belief and what actually in the reality of nature could be different. And I think this is a very good piece. And we also have a talk with filmmaker Ke, so you can actually see his long career of raising different environment issues and bring these information to people through his films. Another important component of the festival is how we are trying to learn more about the issues here in Canada or the history of in Canada. And I think many of us know that the Indigenous residential school has been sort of at the forefront of our conversations or our media reports, and many of us probably don't actually never had an experience of meeting someone or learning more about the issues. So as a festival, we feel obligated to help bring these stories to the community, and we're very happy to have Janice Malmanchur, the executive director of Woodland Cultural Center, to help us to go through a virtual tour. So if you have never been to a residential school site, this is your opportunity to actually go visit. But there's limited seats, and we also need everyone to do a $10 donation to be able to take this tour. And Janice will actually join us after the tour for a Q&A session. So this is your opportunity to actually learn what the Save the Evidence movement is about here in Canada. And lastly, I'd like to, there's a lot more, but I'd like to share it with you that a publisher in Taiwan has actually going to be publishing a book about Taiwanfest and the 20 plus years of my experience managing the festival and how the ideas and philosophy has evolved behind the festival over this past 20 years. And this book is actually a good memory of it. However, the two writers and the editor who are part of this book have never been to the festival. But all of them, through the writing of this book, feel that they have learned more about Taiwanese culture writing the book. And so as Canadian, I think that many of us can actually say the same thing. It's here in Canada we get to learn more about our own culture. When you are in Taiwan or when you are in other places, when you are the majority, you don't tend to think about who you are until you are no longer the majority, and then you wanted to be accepted, you want to be seen, and then you're always trying to find ways to assimilate into the society. One thing that I think these three people could offer is, there's a lot more that we can learn about our own cultures. And sometimes having a different perspective from different country or different culture can actually help you to learn more. And this is their experience of writing the book. And I think their talk is quite fascinating as well. That you can learn, these are three young people in Taiwan, and this is sort of their way of relearning about their own culture. So these are some of the highlights I would share with you. Now, let me take you to the gallery section, and then we can kind of play around with a couple of different works. So there's the Cultures Fermented, and there's Just Taiwan Please. And since we're here, the Cultures Fermented, let's take a look at what Cultures Fermented is about. Oh, wait, maybe we need to go into it. Here we go. Okay, so once you're in here, there's the two urns, like I said. There's the Taiwan urn and there's a Korean urn. And if you would choose one of them, let's go to Taiwan first. And you can click anywhere. And then if you see these images popping up, then you can learn these are the different events and traditions that actually helped to shape Taiwanese culture today. And some of these images, if you click in, it will tell you more about what had happened, and maybe the relevance in the South Korea as well. So if you continue to play with this, you get a sense of it. We actually have made puzzles of this work, and so if anyone is interested in acquiring it, you can actually visit our online store, and perhaps you can buy one and play with it at home. So let's go to the Korea side. And so these are different traditions and events that influence how Korea is formed today. And we also have an online voice guide that you can actually watch and listen to some of the stories behind this work. Okay, so this is one work that I think it's worth playing around, and if you have kids at home, maybe you can share with them and let them learn about a bit about what has made up to be either Taiwanese culture or Korean culture. So the next piece I'm going to show you is actually one of my favorites. Lady Hao Hao is a Taiwanese Canadian artist, and as you probably know, many people have also called Taiwan Chinese Taipei, especially during this past Olympics. Is actually a topic that many people have been discussing. However, not everyone in Taiwan is Chinese, and not everyone is from Taipei. So the name Chinese Taipei doesn't really make any sense. However, there is also the political situation that forces everyone to think that. So the artist is trying to get everyone to think about, are we right by forcing Taiwan to be calling themselves Chinese Taipei? So do you like to call Vancouver English Vancouver? Do you like to call Ho Chi Minh City French Ho Chi Minh City? Or do you like to be, does Seoul like to be called Japanese Seoul? Or Macau to be wanted to be called Portugal Macau? Or Manila wants to be called Spanish Manila? And this is all because there's a very powerful force in China that's making everyone to do that. And so Taiwanese are telling this Weini not to do that anymore. Just let Taiwan be Taiwan. And you can play with this image whatever you want. And so if you can click, you can actually see a bit of a animated version of it. And so you can understand that what the artist is trying to convey. We also have T-shirts made out of them. So people want to help Taiwanese to advocate the name Taiwan and stop calling Taiwan Chinese Taipei. Feel free to support the movement by getting a T-shirt and help to promote the message. So I'd like to thank you for attending this virtual tour, and I hope that was helpful to you. And do enjoy the festival. And if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to send us an email, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Bye-bye.